Students, welcome for the next session of Microorganism Friends and FOE. And in this lecture, the next point that we are going to study is major groups of microorganisms. In major group of microorganism, the first group that we are going to study is viruses. Viruses are also a kind of microorganism which has ability to spread the infections and diseases amongst the living things. So they are two tiny particles than the bacteria, and there are many type of viruses, and depending upon the type of viruses, the type of disease they spread and the mode of spreading infection is also varied, depends upon the type of virus. Yes, the historic background of the viruses, that is discovery of the virus is done by Ivanovsky. It is a Russian scientist who discovered the viruses. And there is another type of virus or the group of viruses called as bacteriophage. Bacteriophage is nothing but the virus which can infect the bacteria. So you can imagine that how bacteria is so small, tiny particle. It is microscopic. We need a microscope to observe the bacteria. And even the bacteriophage is smaller than the bacteria, which can infect the bacteria. So bacteriophages is also a group of viruses which has the ability to infect the bacteria. So these bacteriophages are discovered by scientists Todd and D. Herle. Todd and D. Herle. These are the two scientists who worked upon the bacteriophages and finally discovered the bacteriophages which has the ability to infect the bacteria. Yes, and the next point, the important point that to note about the viruses is that for observing viruses, we need electron microscope. So electron microscope magnifies any small tiny particle to 2 lakh times. So when electron microscope magnifies any virus, then that virus is magnified 2 lakh times, and then we can observe properly the virus and internal structures of the virus. So it is too small. Next, they are host dependent. Viruses are always host dependent. Means what? They always depend upon the living host, living cell, living organism. Without any other living organism, viruses cannot survive because they don't have their own machinery or metabolic machinery, metabolic processes, biochemical processes. They don't have. They lack of all this. So for getting the important thing to the virus is just a genetic material and its protein coating. So for the synthesis of genetic material, for the synthesis of protein coat and repair of protein coat, it needs protein, and for that purpose the virus is dependent on the host. So they are host dependent. Without host they cannot do anything. They are just then dormant, means inactive particles. Then uh, here I would like to tell you that the viruses are somewhat different type of particle. We cannot consider a virus as a cell or living thing or completely non-living thing. It is in between, or it is said that virus is linked between the living things and the non-living things. So virus is nor living thing, neither living thing. So living and non-living are not the factors with the virus, because it is in between, the link between the living things and non-living things. Means it can show the characters of both living things and some non-living. So we'll study that later on. First of all, we'll just finish the introduction of the viruses. They reproduce in host cell and multiply and spread the infection. Means they need a host cell, and when they enter into the host cell, they start multiplying their number by using the biochemical processes and reactions that are occurring in the host cell. The machinery for that purposes that is present in the host cell, that is used by the viruses for multiplying their number, means to increase their population. And when they increase their population, they burst the host cell. They burst the host cell, means host cell is burst off, it is broken down, and the multiplied virus particles, they come out of the cell and spread or infect to other body cells, and they repeat their cycle for multiplication and spreading the infection in the host cell. So don't get confused, or don't think the host cell is something what different. Host cell is nothing but any other living organism. It can be animal, it can be bacteria, it can be human being, it can be plant. So these are all can act as a host cell to the virus. Viruses can infect to human, animal, plants and bacteria. So all this can act as a host cell for the viruses, and viruses can use the biochemical machinery, and machinery in the sense what, all the biochemical processes and the factors responsible for the replication of the virus or multiplication of the virus. For that it needs the certain biochemicals and biochemical reactions, so that are used by the virus when it enters into the host cell, like human, animal, plant, bacteria. So here I would like to show you the pictures or the diagrams, specifically diagrams of the viruses. So this is the diagram of animal virus, and this is the diagram of bacteriophage. So what is the difference between the animal virus and bacteriophage? So there is a lot of difference in the structure. These are the surface proteins that you can see, which can act as a receptor, and immunogenic proteins, means which can act as an antigen for when it enters into the host cell. So these are the surface protein for interaction with the host cells. Okay, protein receptors we can call it as, and it is a protein coat of the animal virus, and inside the protein coat it has the DNA as a genetic material. Genetic material is very important to the virus, because when this genetic material is copied into many copies, and when it is packaged into protein coat, it produces new virus particles. Then another diagram that I have shown you, that is of bacteriophage, which infects the bacteria. So this is the head of the virus, which possesses the DNA as a genetic material. It's a neck, this is the collar, and these are the tail fibers. So these are the different parts of the bacteriophage, which has the ability to infect the bacteria. It is too small. Next part that we are going to study is very important, that virus can show characters of living and non-living things. So let us study how. It is said that viruses act as a connecting link between living thing and non-living thing. Why? Because it can show the characters of living things also and non-living thing also. So Let us first of all study the living characters that are shown by the viruses. So first character is it can reproduce like other living things. Yes, other living things, they reproduce and they increase their population. Same as like that, viruses also reproduce, they increase their number, and they do it very fast, very rapidly. Second living character we can study about the viruses respond to heat, chemical and radiation as like other living things. As like other living thing can respond to the heat, they can't bear too much heat or harmful chemicals and even radiations. So viruses are sensitive to heat, chemical and radiation. Next part, the next point is it is made up of proteins. Viruses are made up of proteins, as like other biomolecules are made up of also protein. Likewise, the virus is also made up of protein. Then it spreads infections. Virus can spread infections because as other living things and microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, they can spread the infection to the other living organisms. Same as like that, virus can also spread the infection to the plants, animals, human beings, and bacteria. Then it has a genetic material. Genetic material is all biological information present inside the virus, and when this genetic material is copied and packaged into new protein code, that can also act as a virus, new particle of virus, because this genetic material, DNA or RNA, act as a biological information, and for the production of new living organism there is a need of this information. So genetic material act as a information, biological information. So it has DNA or RNA as genetic material. Now the study non-living characters of the viruses. So which are the non-living thing characters shown by the viruses? First, it can be crystallized and stored for a long time. It can be crystallized and stored for a long time. Crystallization is a chemical process in which virus particles can be crystallized. They are just converted into crystals, solid crystals, and then they can be stored for a very long time. So they can be crystallized. But other living things we cannot crystallize because it can be pierced or broken. The structure of the cell can be broken by the crystals, and living things or living cells we cannot crystallize, but viruses we can. Next non-living character is they do not grow. Viruses do not grow at all. They remain as it is, only they can reproduce, and that is the living character. Do not respire. They don't need any energy or ATP molecule, adenosine triphosphate energy molecule is not needed by the viruses. They can be reassembled. Means the parts of the viruses like head, neck, collar, tail fibers can be separated and then can be joined again. So again it can act as a virus particle which has the ability to spread the infections. Then cell organelles are absent in the viruses. Cell organelles, as we know that cell has the cell organelles like nucleus, mitochondria, chloroplast, plastids, then the lysosomes, endoplasmic reticulum. So, like this, cell organelles are absent in the virus particle. So, we have studied non-living characters of the virus. Yes, now I would like to mention the new point, that is viral diseases. Viral diseases, it is very common thing that we can experience in our day-to-day life. that is viral diseases. There are very different type of viral diseases, that common cold, cough, flu, influenza, and various type of flus and influenza viruses are there which can spread the disease. And what is the specificity of the viruses to spread the disease? Just I want to mention that viruses are very specific. They are host specific, means one kind of virus only attack one kind of animal or organism, and only the specific tissue in that organism. So virus is specific for organism, and also it is specific for any specific tissue in that organism. So one type of virus only can infect one kind of organism, and also the specific tissue or the cell in that organism. So viruses are very host specific and tissue specific. One type of virus cannot spread the infection to the other kind of organism. For example, common cold cough can occur in human beings, but it is not seen in the animals or plant or any other organism, because the virus responsible for spreading common cold cough, so only it is specific for human, and where the infection of the virus can occur in the throat, in the mainly in the throat and lung area. So respiratory tract and throat are the specific tissue for the infection of common cold and cough. So that viruses only attack on that kind of a tissue in a specific kind of a organism. So that is all about the viral diseases, and there are many other viral diseases. Example, STD. STD viruses or the diseases, simply we can say, sexually transmitted diseases. These diseases are spread due to the sexual intercourse. So at that time, the viruses which are spreading from one infected person to the normal person is called as sexually transmitted diseases, STD, and for that virus is responsible. One of the STD, sexually transmitted disease, is AIDS. And positive organism is HIV. So AIDS is a disease which is spread sexually transmitted diseases, and the positive organism in the sense HIV virus, which spreads the AIDS. So it is a STD. So that is a viral disease. So now what you have to do, your homework is that you have to learn living and non-living characters of the viruses, general note on viral diseases. We have to draw this diagrams of the animal virus and bacteriophage, label it well, and the historic background and general introduction about the microorganisms. So prepare